You will be taking 3 chapter tests and a comprehensive final exam in this course. Each of the 3 chapter tests will consist of 50 questions and you will have a 1-hour time limit. The final exam will be directly proportional with 100 questions and a 2-hour time limit. If you are not prepared for the test and you do not feel comfortable with the material, it's going to seem like the time limit's insufficient and you're going to feel pressured and you might feel rushed to answer all of the questions before the time expires. The test is not designed for students to look up every single question to find every single answer and in a relaxed kind of pace. So you need to be prepared to answer most of the questions based on the knowledge you've gained in your preparation in covering the chapter material. And then you'd be able to look up a few questions that either gave you trouble or that you might not have recognized. I'm going to provide a couple of tips for taking these time tests so you can maximize your time and you might not feel pressured. These tips are not tailored to every individual student's learning style, so it's up to you to find a preparation method and a test-taking strategy that works really well for you. If you don't feel comfortable with the material and you perform poorly, it's kind of easy to point out why you performed poorly. But if you do feel comfortable with the material but you perform poorly, it's probably your test-taking strategy. So you need to make arrangements with me to meet and talk about methods we could use to improve either studying skills, test-taking skills, something along those lines. And of course, anytime if you have questions about material, you should contact me as soon as possible. So starting off with the test taking, as far as you've prepared for the test and you're going to sit down and take the test, one thing I want to start with is by leaving your book and your notes kind of off to the side and not relying on them. One of the things we're going to see is students taking a lot of time, wasting a lot of time looking up questions. So they start with a question, they look it up. They start with a question, they look it up. Things like that. So we're going to pause on that for a second. So set those things to the side. What I want is a piece of paper, something big enough where you're not, writing real small, something big and obvious you can see. It doesn't take a lot of time to look at. And you're going to divide your paper into 3 columns. And one of those columns is going to be a confidence column. It's going to be for questions that you are really confident in. Maybe not 100% confident, but you're relatively sure that you got the answer right. The second column will be for questions that you recognize the question, what the material is. Maybe you can even tell me what chapter the material is found. You recognize answer choices, but there's 2 answer choices that you're choosing between, but you don't really sure which one's which or which one's the correct answer. So you're not confident in it. You want to look those up. So you're going to write that question number in that second column. And then the third column will be things you didn't recognize. You didn't recognize what the question was asking. You didn't understand the question. You didn't recognize the answer choices, something along those lines. So you're going to have 3 answer columns. And as you take your test, you're going to write down question numbers in one of those 3 columns for every single question, 1 through 50. Okay? So as we start the test, the first tip would be don't jump around. Start with question number 1, and for every question, read the question once, and then choose an answer. Okay? Not guess, not go as fast as you can. Just read the question, choose an answer. You may read the question slower than you would normally read, but one of the things that's going to waste a lot of time is having to reread the question multiple times because you either didn't catch what it was asking or you read it too fast, you're rushing, so you're not comprehending the vocabulary that's used in the question. So just at a nice little pace, you're going to read the question once, and you're going to choose the best answer. Okay? So you're going to choose every answer, and you're going to save those questions as they go through, and you're going to write down in one of those 3 columns, confident, kind of confident, not confident at all, the question number. So most of your questions should fall in that first column. If you've done an adequate level of preparation, most of the questions you answer should fit in column number 1. You're confident. Okay? So as we go through 50 questions, you're going to write a number in one of those 3 columns for all 50 questions. Okay? So then, after you're done taking your test, you've answered all your questions, you're going to have a little bit of time left. It's not going to take you an entire hour to read each question once and choose an answer. Okay? So you'll have some time left. And what we're going to do is we're going to ignore the third column for a little bit. Very few questions that you see on your test should fit in that third column where you just don't recognize the material. You don't remember reading about it. You don't remember the PowerPoint's mentioning it, you don't remember it in any of the videos, the labs, anything like that. So that should be a very small number. So we're going to set those to the side. And the reason we're going to set those to the side is because they're a very small number of questions, or should be, very small number of questions, and because you don't recognize them, you're going to spend much more time on each question looking them up. Okay? So a lot of questions in your first column, some questions in your second column, very few in your third. That's what I would expect for someone who actually prepared for the test, studied, read, did all the assignments, and so forth. Okay. So we're going to start with our middle column, the things that we're kind of confident on, or we recognize the material, but we just don't know which answer is correct, or you definitely remember the material, you're just not confident in your answer. So that's where we're going to start. The remainder of our time, we're going to start looking up those questions. We're going to look up question number 1 or question number 5 or whichever question number it is. So you'll go back to that question number, and since you wrote it down, you're not spending a lot of time searching for that question. You just got to scroll up to question 5, and then you can look up that question. Okay. So as far as questions go, every class is different, and we're not going to spend a lot of time breaking down questions. Do want to make a note that none of the questions are designed to be trick questions. I'm not trying to fool you into believing one thing when it's really another answer. So when you think about trick questions, they typically exist when you're not confident with the material. So by reading a question once, it's not legalese. I'm not necessarily trying to trip you up. So reading the question once should be sufficient. Choose an answer. Okay? The last tip I've got is don't second guess yourself. If you choose an answer and you're going to change that answer, the only reason you should change an answer is if you've looked up that question and you can confirm with the language in the book that it is you're choosing now the correct answer. If you go with your gut feeling, more often than not, you'll answer correctly. When you change based on some sort of intuition or gut feeling, more often than not, you're changing at least to an incorrect answer from a correct answer. So you're going to lose more points that way. So if we start with question 1, answer every single question, you'll find that time will be more on your side. You won't feel as pressured or rushed to complete the test, and you'll have a little bit of time to look up some of those questions that you are unsure of. But again, the most important part is being comfortable with the material. So if at any point throughout the first 3 chapters, or the second 3, or the third 3, or the fourth 3, you're having problems with understanding the material, you're just not sure what we're talking about, you can contact me, and we'll either discuss it. We can talk on the phone, email, or via one of the chat sessions, or I'll direct you to additional resources that you can use to help kind of explain it a little better. But that's it for now. Good luck on your test.